This might be the video generator we've all been waiting for. It's completely free and open source. Plus, the quality is actually good. Plus, it's blazing fast and you can even use it on consumer-grade GPUs. This is called LTX-Video by Lightrix, and this week they've released a new and updated version, which is called 13B version 0.9.7. And this is really good, as you can see from the examples here. So in this video, I'm going to go over where and how to use it, plus I'll show you some of my demos, and of course we're going to go over how to install this locally on your computer so you can run it for free and unlimited times offline. Let's jump right in. Now, I must say, after trying this out locally, LTX-Video is by far the fastest video generator compared to all the other models. In fact, they claim it's up to 30 times faster than competitors. But speed isn't everything. Is the quality actually good? And the answer is yes. Plus, you can generate videos in full HD. So really quickly, this has what they call a multi-scale video rendering feature, which generates the video in progressive layers, starting from a really coarse layout and incrementally adding detail. Plus, they have some free upscalers which you can use to add more resolution to your video and turn it into full HD. Plus, you can also extend your video further so it's longer than just a few seconds. And finally, you can even control your videos further with keyframes, so you can use reference images as frames throughout the video. All of these features are free, and this gives you ultimate control and flexibility over your video generation. Alright, so where can you use this? First of all, if you're looking for an online option without the need for a GPU, you can go to LTX Studio, which I'll link to in the description below. You can sign up for a free account, and on their page, they actually have a ton of features, like you can create storyboards, and they even have an image generator. But to generate a video with the latest version of LTXV, simply click on Motion Generator. And then at the top here is where you can select the latest 13 billion parameter model. And then here's where you can add an image as the start or end frame. So let's start with a really challenging image of these two boxers having a fight. Now you can set this either as the start frame or the end frame, but I'm just going to set it as the start frame. And then for the prompt, I'm going to write an intense boxing match, high action. And then here you have the option of selecting the duration of the video. I'm just going to leave it at 5 seconds. And then for motion settings, you can also set the intensity of the motion. So this basically specifies how much movement you want in the video. I'm just going to leave it at 50% and see what we get first. And that's pretty much it. Let's click Generate Video. Alright, here's what we get. Notice that it outputs 4 videos at once, and this is blazing fast. Also note how well it can handle this intense fight. This looks like a legit fight scene. For other video generators, when I generate a boxing scene like this, either the arms get really messed up or they don't even fight. The fighters just stand there and don't do anything. But here it's actually generating a legit fight scene. This looks super realistic, and for some of these videos you can even see the referee walking around. I must say this has got to be the most impressive boxing fight generation I've seen. Alright, now instead of this boxing scene, let's test it on another tricky example. I'm gonna upload this image of a really crowded marketplace with a lot of detail. And then for the prompt, I'm gonna write a busy marketplace. I'm gonna set the duration and the motion intensity at the default, and then click Generate. Alright, and here are our 4 generations. And I must say, I am super impressed by all 4 generations. Look how consistent everything is. Even though there are a ton of people walking around, there are so many different objects and items and details in this scene, but it handles everything super consistently. If you've been playing around with other video generators, you'll know that with such a busy scene like this, you're gonna get a ton of warping and deformations and inconsistency going on. But here, everything looks really good and intact. Next, let's test its ability to generate videos in different styles. So here I'm going to upload this anime image of a few friends talking in a cafe. And then for the prompt, I'm just going to write "they are talking." For the duration and the motion, I'm going to just set it at the default and click Generate. And here are the 4 generations. Now for some of these, we have some really strange things going on. Like for the top one, the head of Miku suddenly pops off and then hovers over to the background. And then for the second one, we have some weird subtitles there for some reason. But at least the one in the lower left corner looks pretty good. Now again, this is a tricky scene because there are so many characters in the scene, but as you can see, it can still generate anime pretty well. Like, these characters are talking and moving as if this was a scene from an anime show. Alright, now instead of anime, let's also see if it can generate 3D Disney Pixar style scenes. So I'm going to upload this image as the start frame, and again for the prompt, I'm just going to write "they are talking." I'm going to set the duration and the motion the same, and then click generate. And here's what we get. All 4 generations look really good. All the characters are moving and talking super naturally and realistically. So you can 100% use this to generate Pixar-like scenes. Alright, let's try something even trickier. I'm going to specify some really tricky camera controls in my prompt, and let's see if it can pull this off. So I'm going to upload this initial image of a dude running down an alley being chased by a car, and then for the prompt I'm going to write "a man runs through a narrow alley, flames lighting up graffiti-stained walls, a muscle car chases behind him, explosions and thunder in the background, trash and debris whip around, the camera tracks the man running, then panning right to reveal a massive explosion, high action." So a super tricky prompt. The camera has to track the man and then pan right and then reveal a massive explosion. And since there's so much action going on, I'm going to set the duration to 7 seconds. And then for intensity, I'm going to leave it the same and then click generate. Alright, and here we go. Now this doesn't follow the camera prompt exactly, but it is kind of tracking the man as he runs around, and there is some massive explosion in the background near the end of the video. And if I were to pick my favorite generation from this, it would be the lower right. This man is pretty smart. Instead of just running straight, what if you could just turn around, which is what he did. So it is kind of panning to the right and then tracking the man as he runs away, and then there is a massive explosion in the background. So, technically, this last generation does follow the prompt to some extent. Alright, now notice that you can also add a start and end frame for the prompt. So let's test out a few examples. For the start frame, I'm going to upload this image of a woman. For the end frame, I'm going to upload a close-up of her eye with some swirling cosmos in her iris. And then for the prompt, I'm going to write a portrait of a woman. Then the camera zooms into the woman's eye, showing a swirling cosmos in her eye. Let's see if it can handle this. I'm going to leave all the settings the same and then click generate video. And here are the 4 generations. Now it is hit or miss some of the time. For example, for the top left and the bottom right scenes, they're not really zooming in smoothly to show the woman's eye. It's just a hard cut in between 2 scenes. But for this bottom left one, this is exactly the effect I want. It is zooming into her face and then showing a swirling cosmos in her eye. So at least 1, or you can say 2 of these generations are correct. And with the ability to set the first and last frame, this gives you a lot of control over your generation, and you can create some really cool transitions. Alright, here's another one. So I'm going to start with this image of a house as the start frame, and then for the end frame, I'm going to add a massive explosion to the house like this. By the way, I generated this using Google's Gemini image generator. And then for the prompt, I'm just going to leave it empty. I'm going to leave all the settings at the defaults and then click generate. Alright, and here's what we get. How cool is that? It indeed adds an explosion to the house, and honestly, all 4 generations look really good. So that's just a really quick showcase of the online video generation capabilities of LTX Studio. By the way, you can also select any one of these. So let's say I go with this one, and then you can also click upscale over here to increase the resolution even further, but that does require a paid plan. You can also generate sound effects with this. So let's click on this and see what happens. All right, let's play this. Very nice. It does kind of automatically detect an explosion and generate the sound for that. And then instead of motion generation, they also have this camera control feature where you upload a starting frame, and then you can select from all these presets like panning left or right, or tilting, or zooming in or out, tracking, etc. Or you can even just move your mouse around like this to specify the end frame. So this again gives you ultimate control over how you want the camera to move for the scene. And like I mentioned briefly at the beginning, they also have an image generator plus the storyboard feature. But that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. Okay, so enough demos. Let's look at how we can install this and run it locally for unlimited times on your computer. Now on their official repo, you can see that there are actually a few ways for you to run LTX-Video locally on your computer. So you can install this and run the model just with some basic Python code. But this is not really intuitive, so a better method is to use their Comfy UI integration. Now if you're new to Comfy UI, it looks like this. This might look really complicated at first with all these components and noodles, but it's actually really easy to use once you get the hang of it. In fact, I already did a full tutorial on Comfy UI, so see this video if you haven't already. Anyways, back to here, I highly recommend Comfy UI instead of just the raw code because Comfy UI is also compatible with other video models and image generators. So you can easily switch between different models and workflows. So in this video, I'm going to go over how to download and use LTX-Video with Comfy UI. And this assumes that you already have Comfy UI installed. If you don't, again, see this video where I go over everything. Anyways, we are going to click in this repo. And if you scroll down here, notice that they've released this 13B version already for Comfy UI. Now they do have a full version here, which gives you the best quality. However, I assume it's going to require a ton of VRAM, which most of you do not have. And then here they offer a quantized version, which requires much lower VRAM with some sacrifice in quality. Here it says it's ideal for consumer-grade GPUs, including the 4090 and the 5090. In fact, some users have reported that they could run this successfully on just 8 GB of VRAM. Now, you could go ahead and follow these instructions and download this Q8 kernels package. However, if I click into this, it requires Microsoft Build tools, and that requires you to install all these additional tools which take over 7 GB on your hard drive. That's a lot of bloat, and a lot of users have reported a lot of errors during the installation. So instead of using this quantized version, we're going to use another FP8 quantized model by this goat called Kijai. He also released an FP8 quantized version of LTXV 13B, and that's what we're going to download for this video. So I'm going to click download here, and I'm going to save this in my Comfy UI folder in models, and then in checkpoints. So let's click save. Note that this is 15 GB in size, so it's going to take a while depending on the speed of your internet. After downloading this model, the next step is to just download one of these workflows. The nice thing about Comfy UI is you don't need to program all these nodes and noodles from scratch. You can just drag and drop an existing workflow onto your canvas. So let's do this image to video workflow. I'm going to click download, and then click this download button here, and you can save this wherever you want. I'm just going to save it in my Comfy UI folder. Afterwards, I'm going to open up my Comfy UI folder and then start up Comfy UI. Now the first step before we run anything is to click on Manager and then click Update Comfy UI. This is important because you might be missing some latest features that are required to run LTX-Video, especially if you're running an older version of Comfy UI. So make sure you update everything first. Alright, afterwards you should see Comfy UI has been successfully updated, so let's click Close and then Close again. The next step is to simply take the workflow file that we just downloaded and drag and drop it onto the canvas of my Comfy UI. Now, the first time we drop this, notice it's missing all these nodes, which is okay. We can install this afterwards. So what we're going to do next is click on Manager and then click on Custom Nodes Manager. And then we are going to type in LTX. And afterwards, you should see this one. So let's click Install. Afterwards, it does say we need to restart Comfy UI to apply the changes. So let's click Restart and then click OK. Alright, afterwards, if we open this up again, you should see that we have no missing nodes. This might seem really complicated, so let's go over each of these components. First, over here, we do need to load up a clip model. So I'm going to select this one, T5XXL FP8, which I've already downloaded previously. If you don't have this yet, make sure you download it from this Hugging Face folder, which I'll link to in the description below. So you just need to download this and save it in Comfy UI, and then in Models, and then in Clip. As you see, I already have it over here. And then here is where you would enter a positive prompt. This is optional because we are doing image to video, but you can add in more details describing what you want to happen in the video. And then here's the negative prompt, so this is basically all the things you want to exclude from the video. And then here's the frame rate. As you can see from the note up here, if you set it to 24 frames per second, it would be higher quality but less motion. If you set it to 60, it would be lower quality and more motion. I'm just going to keep it at the default of 24. And then for this load checkpoint, here is where you would select the LTXV model that we just downloaded. Again, note that this is the FP8 version by Keyframe. Finally, here is where we would choose a photo to use as the first frame. So I'm going to upload this image of a Disney Pixar style scene, and I'm just going to leave the prompt empty. So all of this info gets fed into this next component, which generates a video with base resolution of 768 by 512. So here's where you would set the dimensions of your video. If this is a vertical video, then you could change this to 512 by 768. Since our image is horizontal, I'm just going to leave it as is. And then for the number of frames, this is basically how long you want the video to be. So 97 frames divided by 24 frames per second would give you around 4 seconds of video. And that's pretty much it. So it's going to generate your video over here. Now you could continue and pass it on to this upscaler and add details component to add even more resolution and details to your video. But for now, I'm just going to click on these and click bypass to ignore these components so that we are only outputting a basic video over here. Let's first click run and see what that gives us. Alright, and afterwards you should see your output over here. One final thing to note is that the default value for the save output field is set to false. So in order to actually save the video, you need to right click and then click on save preview to save your video. Or before you run it, you could also set this value to true. Anyways, that's how you would generate a basic low resolution video. Next, I'm going to show you how you can use this to generate a full HD video. So I'm going to unbypass these two sections. And if you go back to the LTX-Video GitHub repo, notice that they offer a spatial upscaler over here and a temporal upscaler as well. The spatial one basically increases the resolution of the video. So you can turn like a 480p video into, for example, a full HD video. It adds pixel level detail. And then the temporal upscaler enhances the consistency and quality of the video over time. If you have a lot of flickering or jitter in your videos, then using this temporal upscaler would be a good option. For us, we're gonna go with this spatial upscaler. So I'm gonna click on this, and then let's click download over here. And this one can go in our Comfy UI folder, and then in models, and then in upscale models. So let's click save. After downloading the upscale model, if we click on this dropdown, you should see this LTXV spatial upscaler over here. If you don't, you might have to close Comfy UI and start it up again. Now there's one more thing you need to do before you run this. Because we are using this spatial upscaler, we need to set this to true first. Now if I zoom out and click run, notice that first it's going to generate this video at low resolution, and then it proceeds to generate this upscaled version, which is going to be full HD. Okay, and if all goes well, you should see your upscaled video over here. Now this is not playing for some reason, so I'm just going to right click and then click Open Preview, so you can see the full HD video over here. Alright, so that covers the basic image to video workflow. Let's also quickly cover this image to video with keyframes workflow, which some of you might be interested in. So again, I'm going to click download here and then click on this download button. This is going to download a workflow JSON file, and I can save this anywhere. I'm just going to save it in my Comfy UI folder. And then on Comfy UI, all you need to do is take your downloaded JSON file and drag and drop it onto your canvas. So if we expand this, it's pretty much the same thing as before. Here is where you have your clip models. So we are going to select this one, T5XXL FP8. Here's the positive prompt, here's the negative prompt, here is the frame rate, same as before, here is where we select the FP8 model from Keyframe, and then here, instead of uploading one image, you can upload 3 different images. One for the start frame, this is for the middle frame, and this is for the end frame. Alright, so here are my 3 images. The first frame is going to be this, the middle frame is going to be this, and the last frame will be this. And then for the prompt, I'm going to put the shoe hovers slowly, blue bolts swirl around it, then flames surround it. Pretty simple prompt. Let's see if it can figure this out. And then again, over here is where we can specify the width and the height of the video, plus the length of the video. So 97 frames divided by 24 frames per second is roughly 4 seconds. And then over here, again, if we want to upscale this further, we can select this spatial upscaler model and then set this to true. And that's pretty much it. All the settings are the same as before. Now to make this faster, just to show you a rough example, I'm going to bypass these upscale components. And that's pretty much it. Let's click run and see what that gives us. Alright, so here is our final result. And it's actually pretty good. And it does follow these 3 images for the start, middle, and end frames. Really impressive. Now again, the default value for the save output is false, so in order to save it, I need to right click and then click Save Preview. And of course, note that this is pretty low quality because the resolution here is just 768 by 512, but you can always pass it through these upscaling components to make this full HD. And so that is how you can add keyframes to your generation as well. And that sums up my review and tutorial of this LTXV 13B version 0.9.7. Aside from the really long name, which is a mouthful to pronounce, it's actually surprisingly good. It's the best of both worlds. You get really good video quality plus amazing speed. This is one of the fastest open source video generators out there. Plus, with this quantized version, you can run it on pretty low VRAM. You might even be able to get away with running this on just 8 or 12 gigabytes of VRAM. So it's accessible to a lot of people. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you think of this. If you've had a chance to play around with this, what other cool and impressive generations were you able to come up with? And if you get stuck during the installation, welcome to copy and paste the error message in the comments below, and I'll try to help you troubleshoot as much as possible. As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.